See the worms there, just from one of the cans. But the outside of the can, look, it's just a bit of worm cast on the outside. So I'll try and push this cylinder. I don't know if I'll be able to do it one hand. Or yeah, it will just come out. That's interesting because the paper on top is broken down. Because obviously you'd be able to reuse this and you wouldn't normally have to do all this, but I just thought it might be interesting. So you can see the worms on top. There's quite a lot of roots growing in amongst this, so it might not just unroll, so bear with me. Yes, we get more worms in the layers. But this is great for the roots because, oh look at that, yeah, look at the worms inside. This is a pair of my wyverns. I think they're pretty much past their best now. I would have thought there'd be more worms in amongst that cardboard. Perhaps it's because it was folded over, they'd have to eat their way through the cotton first. But the roots are really getting down in there. The old worm there. You can see how the roots are growing down the corrugations in the cardboard. Oh, so that's pretty much as I left it. Yeah, it's slimy. Yeah, I think it's quite tightly rolled, so it's. Well, this is superb for wicking. Slightly less eventful than I hoped for, but it just goes to show that how effective that is with the root growth right into the centre as well, right into the middle there, the roots growing. Yeah, cardboard there. Worms on the top. Yeah, so I think that was it, because it was so densely compact. You can see the worms have been eating the cotton, but they haven't been able to kind of eat their way into this. So yeah, I imagine that could go another year. But I'll reuse that material as a kind of capillary wick. I think there was a layer of cotton on top, but I'll just have another look. And this was just a PET fizzy drinks bottle. I think it's 500 millilitres. Just cut the top and bottom off with bandsaw, just run it through a saw. And then that makes a nice little kind of rot-proof container that holds that wicking material. In similar containers, I just used logs or offcuts of timber, and it's just a way of supporting the subfloor. I normally have, sometimes I have a plastic reclaimed acrylic kind of laser cut insert that fits into the container, and then it basically sits on these cans. So you've got loads of cans there, and then there's rolled up corrugated cardboard in the voids in between the cans. But on this one I just use wood chip, and rather than that plastic subfloor, I just used a layer of wood chip as well. And then I had some of the capillary matting. Yeah, so this is purpose made perforated polythene, and that stops just evaporation from capillary trays. But obviously I wasn't growing on this as a capillary tray. I think I might have been initially, but then obviously if you've got your container, you've got the small pots standing on top, they're going to get knocked over by cats and foxes and things like that. So that's where I thought I'd use the second container almost like a collar just to go around the plants. And then I thought, well, you've got the worms actually in the reservoir, why don't I put wood chip around, pack it around the pots so there's more organic matter? And that worked really well, because that's that kind of bucket of compost that you've got from that. And as you can see, it's really nice stuff. There's a bit of perlite and bits of old, I might have had some spent compost, but then there's very little wood chip in there. So I mean, yeah, you can just grow next year's plants in there. What I like doing as well, what I've started doing with my green manures, is almost like a lasagna bed. So you actually, because this is quite deep, I wouldn't normally grow in a pot that deep. I mean, even these are quite big pots, but you could see you can get a couple of inches of wood chip, kitchen waste, wood chip, newspaper. So that's organic matter that's going to break down during the year. And then you've got a little bit of compost. So that's quite a big container. If you thought that's from a 25 litre container, so you need about 10 litres of compost. But if you're actually growing in these little pots, you only need about 2 litres of compost, and obviously this will produce more than 2 litres of compost required. So yeah, you're it's a little bit like a compost bin as well. So you're getting all that material from here. You're enjoying the container. It's low maintenance, so it's a really nice method of growing. But yeah, I'm quite excited just to sort of see this, and I really want to explain to people that there's so much sort of gardeners world now. They'll show a little bag of organic compost and they say, oh, use this and make up your little potting mixes, and then you go around the DIY store and then you get another little 60 litre bag and you pay your 12 quid for 2 bags or whatever it is, and then they get it delivered and then you've got to carry it to your car. So you know, rather than doing all that, and then obviously once the compost is spent, it's all compacted, and then you get these little root balls, and then you sort of chuck it in the compost and buy more compost every year. This is terrific. So what is nice, and I think it's composting in situ is superb, because once that plant's dead, all that root material there will be next year's soil. So that's all composting down. Look at that worm coming out there. Amazing. So I'm only taking this apart for, well, just because I'm interested and for your kind of benefit if you're watching this. So yeah, you can leave that in situ. Obviously with a pot, you'd have to take the pots out, so you'd have to plop them straight back in again. But then yeah, you can grow in that. It's a self-watering container, so it's almost kind of seamless from using it for 1 year's worth of growth and then swapping it out, and then yeah, sowing some seedlings and then popping the pots back in. But you'll have too much compost, so take some of the compost out and then put some more wood chip in. But wood chip's free. Just if there's anyone doing any tree surgery, just sort of say, oh, is it all right if I have a bag of wood chip, and they'll be happy to get rid of it because it's costs them money to transport it around. Yeah, really good. But I've asked the laser cutter if they can put aside their containers, and I've showed the guy some of the photos, because I don't know, I think working with acrylics and materials which are, they're obviously paying for them to be recycled, and there's it's costing them £1,000 every skip, which is, that's their money. But I think because the guy works in design and technology, or manufacturing, which is design and technology, and I'm working in a school as a DT instructor, I think he kind of wants to encourage students to learn and get into using microcontrollers and using reclaimed materials and recycling materials. So if he can benefit the school, and then if he can get students that are interested, then he might have a few employees later on down the road as well. But yeah, I want to get a couple of dozen of these once a month, do a workshop, get a couple of dozen of those around the school, get them planted up, get them in flower, get the students enjoying them, get the senior management to sort of think, wow, those sunflowers are superb. What can we do? Can we get some more? Can we do this? And can we? And if you've got a horrible concretey area, and even like around the backs of the kitchens, as you go into the community garden, why not put some of those containers where the wheelie bins are? Make it look really gorgeous. So where you're composting waste, just see that as part of the composting process. And it's like, well, that kitchen waste turned into these beautiful sunflowers, which produce seeds, which fed all these beautiful finches. So there's so much to be had just from something so simple and so straightforward, and so labour, sort of that ease of labour and lack of watering and irrigation, and it just makes you want to make more of these things. And what is really nice about these as well, because these are the what do you call it, just high density polyethylene, I tend to pile up wood chip around these, and because you've got the moisture in there, the kind of worms will radiate out around that, then they will be in amongst the wood chip around the outside as well. And when I was doing this with the capillary matting, I was just dropping a couple of bits of matting outside, so then as a wicking container they water the plant, and they also water that surrounding wood chip, and then there'll be loads of soil life in the wood chip, and that will get into that bin as well, and then that'll be moving that material around the plant roots, and the plant roots will be down there amongst the irrigation and the worms and the worm casts. So yeah, it really is like a continuous cycle. And obviously if you're composting as well, the plant can be cut back down, it can be hot composted or composted alongside, and then you'll just transfer the material straight back into there and then grow over again. So that could go, yeah, you've got years of reusing and recycling that organic matter, which is brilliant really. I'll just try and pop this out of the pot just to see what's going on. Yeah, so this is good. Yeah, because all the roots have gone down because they're going into that moisture. So rather than just growing round and round and round like in a pot plant, there's quite a bit of perlite because I do use old composts as well, so I kind of add that. There's not many worms in here, it's kind of strange. I suppose there's not much for them to do in there because all the organic matter's around the base. Yeah, so, well, it's done its thing. That compost down. It's got the capillary matting, so what's nice because the capillary matting still wicks up into there. So I'll tip the plants out of the pots, pop them back in, top it up with water, and then just leave that to compost down. There's enough worms and cocoons in there, so that kind of keep it going. Yeah, so I'm quite impressed by this. And it's just a kind of lazy way of gardening. So you pot your seed, plant your sow seed. Once it's germinated, pop it into a little plot, stick it in a bucket, enjoy it, and then tip the bucket out when the plant's finished. So yeah, really nice method. But if you were going to buy one of these containers, if there's a garden centre started selling things, and they don't sell things like this because they're just boring, and if you were kind of setting up an injection moulding machine to make that, there'd be a big expenditure and a big kind of product development cost, and then you buy one of those and it'd be, I don't know, $24.99, and then it was split, and then you throw it away, and it'd be like, oh, I've only got one. But these are reclaimed, so you can get, rather than paying $24.99, you might get 24 of these containers and make a whole little terrace of them. But the nice thing about these is as well, because you've got quite a sturdy solid container, it's like the kind of size of a breeze block, you could have that as a little retaining wall as well. So if you've got a compost bin or a worm bed, you can build it up on one side, and then you can kind of terrace with these things as well. So I think of them a bit like that computer game Minecraft, where you've got all these different materials, and then you can kind of construct structures. And I think part of that ethos is coming from an allotment where you've got a limited number of square meters. So if you can grow ½ a meter upwards, you've got vertical surfaces as well. So you're regaining the amount of footprint again, so you can have more plants growing up the sides. So it's interesting, but I really do like that tiny amount of irrigation that's required. So as a sort of educational tool, if you can kind of reduce the amount of day-to-day maintenance and watering and that kind of burden, you can be focusing in on actually developing and making more interesting structures and making in-vessel compost bins and learning, and at the same time all that time spent on the menial stuff is automated, and then you can be like, wow, we got all this vermicompost and we didn't have to pay any money for compost, it's all there and it's all just being made on site. So plus it looks really eye-catching, and I think a lovely wall of sunflowers towering up, I don't know, 8 feet in the air, that's going to be a brilliant showcase for what the school's doing and in terms of what the students are learning, and it's so easy as well. Yeah, so glad that you watched, and hopefully you learned something about this. But what I want to kind of encourage people to think about soil as a living organism. Don't just think, oh, it's got compost in there, next year I'll throw that compost away, I'll put new compost in. You're using things like coir and peat, which hasn't really got anything in it, it hasn't got any sustenance, it's got no it's kind of inert. Once you've got organic matter, and once you replenish that organic matter and mulch, and then you've got worms, they'll kind of cycle that material around. But they aerate amazingly well. So you can see all the kind of the roots going down into that corrugated cardboard and pulling up all that moisture and all that irrigation into the soil. So it's, yeah, it's just it's that's, you're working on the soil, and then the plants just happen to be growing in the same thing, but you're not focusing on the plants. The plants are secondary, and it's what's going on in here which is the important part. So if you can get out of that thinking of, oh, I've got to buy a new compost and I've got to get all the kind of, I've got to buy everything. Just think, yeah, make the compost, but make the compost in the same containers that you're growing in, so you can be enjoying the plants whilst you're actually composting as well. So when the plants are finished, you've actually got another 6-7 litres of compost. So it's like, hang on a minute, if I make another one of these next year, I'll have twice the amount of compost, and if I make more, then I'll have 4 times the amount of compost. Because soil is a living thing, and it isn't soil. It's not soil up to here and then compost. It's not leaf litter on top and then organic matter. It's organic matter mixing in with whatever aggregates and particles and all the other kind of constituents of soils, all those little aggregates and minerals and zinc and magnesium, calcium, and all the other kind of elements that are in there. But yeah, it's really successful. Thanks for watching.